So we are going to be having a 6-part study of the Splendid Instructions to the Mind by Radhanath Das Goswami. So we arranged to publish a translation of this book. I don't have any copies of the book with me. They're a little heavy and I didn't bring them. You can get them from Golden Age Media in India as a 1-volume hardback. You can get it on Amazon as a 2-volume paperback. You can also get it on Amazon as a Kindle book. And somebody made an audiobook of it. I don't know who that was, but somebody did, and I don't even know where you can find it. But when I was in Suriname, one devotee was listening to it and said, "Oh, I found it for free online." So it is also available there. So this is what's on the cover of our book. This is Mahaprabhu giving Radhanath Das Goswami his Govardhan Shila. This is what the book looks like. So why are we studying this particular book? Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that this book is a padati. Pada means step and hati means progress. So this is a book of step-by-step how to achieve spontaneous devotion for Krishna in Vrindavan. So those of us who are looking for a guidebook for this, and I first got introduced to this book by Sachinandan Maharaj. It was at the Govardhan retreat, and he had a class on verse 1, which is what I'll be teaching today. At the end of the class, he said, "I'm not satisfied with this class. I somehow, it's just not right. Everyone, please pray to Giriraj for this." He said, "I prepared for months," but he said, "It's just not right." So I went with one other devotee, and we were walking by Govardhan. We had the 12 verses in front of us, and we were really praying to Govardhan. And at a certain point, it's like, "Oh, okay, I've got it." And I wrote down the organization of the book and ran back to the retreat center and found Maharaj and showed it to him. He said, "Yes, this is it." He said, "You should arrange for a new translation." And I'm like, "Me, huh?" And I kind of forgot about it, and quite some time later, I think it was a couple years later, I was talking to one of my friends, a very senior Vaishnavi, and just out of the blue, without knowing that I'd had this previous conversation, she said, "You should arrange for a good translation of Radhanath Das Goswami's Manah Siksa." I'm like, all right. I thought, well, the book is all in metaphorical terms. It would be nice to write a novel based on Manah Siksa. So I started it, and then I realized, I can't do this until I've actually produced a good translation of Manah Siksa. So I spent 3 years working with Sanskrit and Bengali translators, translated not only Radhanath Das Goswami's original verses, but Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur also wrote a prose commentary on Manah Siksa, and he wrote a poetry commentary. He wrote a song commentary, which had never been published in English in any form. So we translated both of those. And then I realized that some devotees in our movement had also written some commentaries or given some lectures on Manah Siksa, so we included those as well. And then we got everything profusely illustrated. So it gives you this step-by-step guide. This is for serious practitioners of bhakti. However, although it is for serious practitioners of bhakti, and although it is a guide to spontaneous devotion and therefore a high level of literature, unlike many of the esoteric books about spontaneous devotion in Vrindavan, it's accessible even to the beginner. And it is even accessible to those who are just beginning their devotional journey. In fact, I have taught this at Sunday feasts. Now, the PowerPoint I use for a Sunday feast is shorter and a little bit different. I mostly focus on the middle verses. But the point is that this is applicable to everyone. There's some, you know how the scriptures are functioning at different levels and different layers, right? How you'll read Bhagavad Gita when you're a beginner and you understand something and you get something out of it, and you read it again 10 years later and you're like, "Oh, wow, there's all this stuff in there." So this book also operates at many different levels. Another reason this book is very important, which we'll only discuss very briefly in our second class when we look at verses 2 and 3, we look at this in context of verse 3, is this book establishes that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati and his disciple A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada were actually teaching the bona fide process and science of spontaneous devotion. So we'll talk about this more in our second class. There's a whole chapter in the book on this topic that I wrote called The Importance of Manah Siksa. And the reason I wrote that chapter is while I was working on this book, Devi Swami met with me and said, maybe BBT Australia will print this book, but only on condition that you write a chapter explaining how this book establishes Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati as bona fide. I'm like, And finally, after about a year, I thought, okay, I'm going to do that. So I wrote this chapter, and then I wrote to Maharaj. I said, our book is ready, And he said, just print it yourself. He said, if you work with the BBT, it'll take too many years. He said, just go ahead and print it. So in the meantime, I was kind of tricked into writing that chapter. So we'll discuss a little bit about that in our next class. But basically, there's different methods of spontaneous bhakti, and the method given in Radhanath Das Goswami's Manah Siksa is the method that was taught and practiced by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati and by our founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada. So this is the way the book is organized. So verses 1 through 3 are the qualifications. Now, having said that, there also are steps on the path. So everything except verse 12 is a step on the path. But verses 1 through 3 are really talking about the qualification. The reason we call it the inner path is because there's two paths of attraction, an inner and an outer path, and it's the outer path that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta and Srila Prabhupada did not use in their institution. So today we'll be doing just verse 1, and our second class will be doing verse 2. Then we're going to have two classes on the obstacles, verses 4 through 7. So this is the specific anartas that we have to get rid of, and I always find it interesting and surprising that an apodity, that these anartas exist even in people who have the qualifications of verses 1 through 3. So these are the heavy verses of the Manah Siksa. This is what I call the heart surgery. So if you don't want to have any heart surgery, you might want to skip those classes. So that will be classes 3 and 4. All right, so then verses 8 through 11 are perfection, the description of perfection, and we'll have one class on verses 8, 9, and 10, and then we'll have a class just basically on 11 and a little bit of 12. I don't mention 12 here because it's just the benedictory verse. So we'll have a class on 11 and just a little bit on 12. Okay, so those will be our 6 classes. Oh, one thing we should also have for these classes is everyone should have access to Vaishnav songs. So either if you have printed songbooks or if you have access to a songbook on your phone. I think many of you have access to Vaishnav songs on your phone, yeah? I know there's a web page, KK songs or something, and then there's also an app you can get, so you're going to want to have that. Okay, so we're going to do just verse 1 today. Now, in the benedictory verse, it's stated that anyone who sings these songs with a sweet voice will be able to enter into the service of the divine couple in Goloka Vrindavan. Woo-hoo. Now, there's 2 ways to translate that verse, as Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur discusses in his commentary. One is anyone who sings the verses anywhere can enter into Goloka, and another one is if you sing the verses in the forest of Gokula, then you can enter. But Prabhupada says all our temples are Vrindavan, so either way you want to understand it will work just fine. So these verses are to the tune of Jagannathastakam, but we don't change the last line. Ramapad Swami, His Holiness Ramapad Swami, also teaches Manah Siksa. He has a little modified version of my PowerPoints, and he arranged for people to chant these verses in a slightly different tune, and that's available on YouTube if you want to study that tune, if you want to be chanting these verses regularly. So what I want to do with each of the verses is that we'll sing them all together, not call and response. So we'll sing them all together, and then we'll also say the English all together. By the way, you're welcome to get a copy of this PowerPoint. I gave a copy to Rukmini, and you can distribute it as you like. I mean, you can take pictures too, but we'll also give you the PowerPoint. And as I said, the book is available from Golden Age Media in India and also from Amazon. Okay, you ready? Everybody together? Guru goste gostala yishu sujane bhusuragane swamantra trinamni vrajana vayuva dvandva sarane sadadambam hitva kururatima purvam atitaram Aye swantar bratas chatubiya biya chedrita padaha. And if we can say the English all together also. O dear brother, O mind, having given up all pride, please develop unprecedented and excessive attachment to Sri Guru, to Sri Vrindavana, the abode of cows, to the devotee residents of Vrindavana, to all the devotees on this planet, to the confidential mantra given by Sri Guru, to the holy names of Sri Sri Radha Krishna, and to the process of surrendering to the fresh youthful couple of Raja, holding your feet, I beseech you with sweet words. Can you all see the screen clearly from there? So how nicely he's talking to his mind. Right? We know that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur talks about beating our mind with sticks and shoes. But here he's saying, my dear mind, I'm holding your feet. You're my brother. I speak very sweetly to you. You know, sometimes when you deal with a difficult person, you have to be extremely polite. And if you're worried about the sticks and the shoes, we will get there. Okay? Especially in verse 6. And verse 6 and verse 7, Srila Radhanath Goswami really gets out his sticks and shoes. All right, we have this unprecedented and excessive attachment. And it's so interesting that Srila Radhanath Das Goswami starts his book with attachment. We generally think of yoga as involving detachment. So bhakti yoga is a little different from the other types of yoga. So in the other types of yoga, you want to become detached. You basically want to pour out all your attachments from your cup. And have an empty cup. So bhakti yoga is a little different. So our material attachments, do you have in South Africa fake juice? Can you buy fake juice? Yeah, so you can buy a big jug of it, right? So it's water, sugar, artificial color, artificial flavor. Maybe they put a few drops of juice in it so they can say contains real juice, right? Like 0.1% or something. So we have our cup full of fake juice. All our material attachments are fake juice. And then we have the real juice. So we went out to a mango tree. You're starting mango season now, right? So we went out to a mango tree. We picked fresh, organic, tree-ripened mangoes, and we've got a bottle of mango juice. And we start pouring that into our cup with the fake juice. So what's going to happen if we keep pouring and pouring and pouring? Right, the fake juice the proportion will keep changing, right? We'll gradually have less and less fake juice and more real juice. And we never will have an empty cup. So this is our process. It's given by, explained very nicely by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his Madhurya Kadambini, where he says, we start out where our material attachment is absolute, and our attachment to Krishna is just a tiny little trace. And at each step, Prabhupada uses the words gradually and proportionally. At each step, as we raise our attachment to Krishna, our attachment to Maya decreases. And Nishta is about halfway. And eventually, our attachment to Krishna is absolute, and our material attachment is zero. So in the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna asks, shouldn't I first get rid of all my material attachments? Shouldn't I first become purified and realize the self or Brahman and then do bhakti? And Krishna says, well, you can do that, but klesho dikartarashtesham, that will be a lot of klesha. It will be a lot of trouble. First of all, it will be a lot of trouble to try to empty your glass. then once you have an empty glass, it will be some trouble to cultivate spiritual attachment. Now you notice the first word here is guru. That's why I say this book is designed for people who are already somewhat serious, because you can't be attached to a guru if you don't have any. Right? He also mentions about mantra, being attached to the mantra, which means the Diksha mantras. So Namni means the holy name, the Hare Krishna mantra, but Swam mantra means the mantras we receive at what we call second initiation. So this first verse is assuming that you already have those. It's hard to be attached to something you don't have. But as I say, even beginners can also benefit from this. I talk to beginners. I talk about in terms of being attached to the people who help us on our spiritual path. Okay. So can you give me the list, preferably without looking? See if you can give me the list, and you can look back to check. Where should we have this attachment? To whom? To Guru, to Vrindavan. Again, see if you can remember without looking at the screen, and then you can look at the screen to check. Devotees. Well, Vrindavan, the land of cows. The holy name, the mantras. Yes, surrender. Okay, and in the verse, Srila Radhanath Goswami seems to make two categories, but Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur makes three. We'll get there. The process of surrendering to the fresh youthful couple. Process of surrender. All right. Very good. Okay, so we're going to go through these one by one. Did I mess up with something? Oh, I just put U, M, and K. That's for Uttama, Madhyama, and Kanista. And yeah. And we'll go over that in a moment, so don't worry, we'll. By the way, when you teach, one teaching technique is to create a mystery that then you solve. No, seriously. We're all hardwired to like mysteries. Krishna must love them. Okay, so first is Guru. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains that this is our Shiksha Guru and Diksha Guru. And anyone who helps us on the path of bhakti, really. It's not just like our official Diksha Guru, but anybody who acts as a teacher in the science of bhakti. And Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, don't just see your guru as a sadhu, but see your guru as a well-wishing friend. So how did Srila Prabhupada sign his letters? Your ever well-wisher. Now, I was at a class in Ujjain where Bhakti Chiruswami said, your guru's not your friend, meaning your guru's not your buddy. You know, when Prabhupada first met Tamal Krishna Maharaj, before he was Tamal Krishna Maharaj, Prabhupada was at a hippie nudist camp, and Tamal Krishna, who was nude, came up to Prabhupada and slapped him on the back and said, "How you doing, Swami?" or something like that. So, not that we should see our guru like that as a casual, informal buddy, but we should see that they're actually our friend. There's someone who really cares about us. In other words, that there is a personal, caring relationship. It's not just this is some sadhu. And then, attachment to the process of surrender. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur comments, to have exclusive and one-pointed attachment to the youthful couple of Raja as dear as life. Now, being attached to the process of surrender is actually difficult because the process of surrender involves letting go of our false ego. And our false ego is what we think is us. We have this deep-seated fear that if I let go of my false ego, I will cease to exist. So that our false ego is thinking, I am this body, I'm a white American New York woman, that like that, right? Or I'm whatever, I'm from Brazil, or I'm from South Africa, and my family were originally Gujaratis, and whatever is our particular bodily thing, and then our mental thing, I'm a conservative, I'm a liberal, I vote for this party, I vote for that party, I like this kind of thing, I don't like that kind of thing, I'm reserved, I'm outgoing, I'm whatever it is, all of our particular personality in this life, which by the way is not our eternal personality and probably wasn't our personality in our last life, and if we have another life, will probably not be our personality in our next life. And then I have all these, family members. These are my parents, my brothers and sisters, maybe my spouse, my children, these are all mine and these are my possessions. This is my computer and this is my backpack and, this is mine and these are my, my education. These are the degrees that I have. These are the places. And I got my degree from this university and, that like that. And this is my Jai Shishi Radhanath. This, all of these things, this is all false ego. I have this kind of occupation and this, and they define us. And we think that if I let go of thinking that this is me, then I would have no existence. But surrendering means that I revive my original personality, my original body, my original relations, my original possessions even. Right? This nice verse in Brahma Samhita, how we have our original home and possessions in the spiritual world, and that I let go of identifying with this world. I still work in this world according to that identity, but I don't identify with it. Like if you lend me your car and I'm using the car to drive, I'm using the car to drive, but I don't think it's my car. Clear? Yes? So to be attached to the process of surrender means to become attached to things which, materially speaking, appear extremely difficult and painful. They're not. They're actually blissful and liberating, but from our perspective, they look difficult and painful. An analogy you can think of is an addict. So if someone, thankfully, I've never been addicted to anything in this lifetime, but those who get addicted to any kind of drugs or alcohol, tobacco even, I understand it's a very painful journey to give it up. And the people generally consider, even if they've been sober or smoke-free for 20 years, they still think, I'm an addict that has to be careful. And usually it's a very difficult process and extremely painful and stressful. Whereas as they come out of it, they say, wow, this is liberating. I feel so much healthier. I feel so much clearer. I'm so happy that I'm out of the process. So this process of surrender is very much like that. We're giving up something that we're attached to and we didn't need to be attached to. Then attachment for Vrindavan, the land of cows, the holy places, to cultivate this loving attachment. Now, of course, Raghunath Das Goswami says this is unprecedented attachment. It's not like material attachment. Material attachment, I'm attached to someone because of what they can do for me. Spiritual attachment, I'm attached for how I can serve. So it's unprecedented in this world. And excessive, a great attachment. Not like, yeah, I'm attached to Vrindavan. Yeah, I'm attached to Guru. But this intense attachment. So what does it mean to be attached to the holy land of Vrindavan? First of all, this also includes a temple like this. This is also Vrindavan. It even includes our own little altar at home. If you have a shelf, a bookcase or something where you've set up a sacred space, and then if Krishna is there, his abode is there. So this means we have a mood of service for the Dham. Like I notice here in this temple, that the temple is kept very, very clean. It's a very well-maintained, clean property. Of course, part of the reason you do that is by having hired people. But the point is that there's a mood of having it very clean and well maintained. And if I point out that something is broken, there's some effort made to get it fixed. That means attachment. I was just hearing a class where Prabhupada said that if you don't clean things and you don't fix things at the temple, it means you think the deity is a stone statue. So this is the evidence. Oh, no, we think the deity is Krishna. Oh, but the temple is filthy and everything's broken. Prabhupada said, then you are seeing the deity as a burden. And I thought that very significant, because I go to many temples where everything's broken, everything's dirty. Or in people's homes, I see altars where they never clean the altar. You know, they put a piece of cloth, and that cloth's been there for the last 2 years and it's never cleaned. And there's bits of incense ash and dead flower petals everywhere all over the altar. So that's attachment to the place. Just like we're attached to our birthplace, right? We all have some attachment to our native place. Just like I was born in New York City, but I joined the movement in Chicago. And one time I was introduced, this is Urmila, who was born in Chicago. And immediately I felt really upset. Like, I wasn't born in Chicago. I was born in New York. And then I'm like, wow, Urmila, you're really attached to your birthplace. I found it quite humorous. So we have this attachment, right? So we should have that kind of attachment to Krishna's place. Well, this is Krishna's place. Let me take nice care of it. Let me serve it. Let me keep it clean. Let me keep it in working order. One devotee, I know one of my students visited Vrindavan for the first time, and he was saying, what do you suggest I do there? And I said, some service. I said, don't go there just with, I'm going to Vrindavan to enjoy. I'm going to go there, I'm going to soak up all the spiritual advancement. But I'm going to go, and how am I going to serve the Dham? Now we have attachment to devotees. So Srila Radhanath Das Goswami seems to indicate two categories of devotees. The devotees in Vraja and the devotees of this planet. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in his commentary, divides the devotees on this planet into two groups. So the first is attachment to the devotees of Vraja, those whose, not just whose body is in Vraja, but whose consciousness is in Vraja. And this distinction, at least it was very important to me. There was, in 2006, I spent 3 months staying in Govardhan town, like right in Govardhan town, and very quickly saw behavior of some of the residents there that just, I don't know, I just felt disgust at what I saw. And it was very difficult for me to think about, well, how were these residents of Vrindavan? I just couldn't put that together. And one of the things was something from Srila Sanatana Goswami that I also pacified me. But one of the things is that, like Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati says, that a lot of the people apparently living at Radhakund are actually living at Narakakund. They're actually living in hell. That it's not just where you physically put your body. Like Prabhupada was asked once, do you make more advancement living in a temple? He said that depends on whether your mind is on another subject matter. Just like we've all experienced, and maybe it's happening with some of you. You know, you're sitting here in this room, but if you're thinking, oh my God, I have to go to work and there's this heavy email from my boss and maybe I'm going to get fired, you're probably not really here. Or if you're thinking, you know, my kid's getting married in 2 days, you're probably not really here. If there's something you're really excited about or really in anxiety about, your mind's going to go there, and you're not going to be where your physical body is. Yes? So the point is, who live in Vrindavan in consciousness. So you can be in Durban, South Africa, and be living in Vrindavan, and you can be bathing in Radhakund 3 times a day and be living in hell. So we're talking about those whose consciousness is in Vrindavan, and they may be physically there also. Then among the devotees living on this planet, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has these two categories. First, he calls these devotees the Uttama devotees. Then the Madhyama devotees are those in any spiritual tradition who have dedicated their lives to God, but they may not be meditating on Krishna in Vrindavan. Frankly, they may not even know about Krishna in Vrindavan. Then he has the category called Kanishta, who he defines as the Brahmanas teaching Varnashram. In other words, people who are dedicated to spiritual life, but they're focused entirely on the rules of moral behavior in this world. Their religion is stuck on this world. So I want to look at the fact that we should have great attachment, excessive attachment to all these types of devotees. And I want to look at these distinctions of Uttama, Madhyama, and Kanishta, because I think there's a lot of confusion about these terms. Okay, so here we have in the Manah Siksa, who are the Uttamas again, according to Manah Siksa? Those who live in Vrindavan. And the Madhyama? Anyone else want to try? Yes? From any tradition who are really serious about meditation, they're not just a, oh, I'm a Christian, I'm a Hindu, but someone in any tradition who seriously worships the Lord. Anybody want to try for the Kanista? Yes, okay, so religious teachers, they focus on moral codes and behavior. Okay? Now these words, Uttama, Madhyama, and Kanista, are interesting. Kanista just means not steady. So it means a beginner. Madhyama means middle, literally means like intermediate, and Uttama means above ignorance, and it just means higher. So this means, you know, advanced, intermediate, and beginners. Okay, can somebody tell me the definition of Uttama, Madhyama, and Kanista? We have the 11th canto definition. That's the one you're going to hear most often from Srila Prabhupada. So it's all over Prabhupada's books and lectures. When he talks about Uttama, Madhyama, and Kanishta, he's usually giving this one. So the one you're most familiar with will probably be that one. Then we have the Nectar of Devotion, which gives these categories in terms of qualification for taking up Vaidhi Bhakti. It's a little different perspective. And we have the Nectar of Instruction, text 5, which tells us how we can choose association. So anybody want to help me fill out these squares here? This is always how I can tell in any community, do people read Prabhupada's books? Yes? Everyone else is devotees. And this is which category? Uttama, yes, okay. Everyone is a devotee except me. That's not low self-esteem, by the way. Okay, anyone want to try for another box? We should have a game, right? We win Maha Sweets or something. And this box for 10 points. Give out Burfi. Madhyam for which one? 11th canto, okay. And it is? Excellent. So actually it says love for God, prema. Love for God, friendship with devotees, helps the innocent, and avoids the envious and the demons. Any other square, any taker for any other square, any other square, any taker, any taker. Yes? And nowhere else. Okay. So this is also 11th canto. God is only in the or my temple and cannot recognize devotees. So this is the most common religious person in the world. You know, that God is just in my church or temple or mosque or whatever when I go once a week for worship, and when I go home, there's no God anymore. So, you know, there's in my work, in my family, in my recreation, there's no God. He's like a separate category of life. This is the religious part of my life. This can also be very sectarian, like God is only in my place of worship, not in yours. You know, he's only in the Catholic Church, he's not in a Protestant church, he's only in the Sunni mosque and not in the Shiite mosque and that kind of thing. Okay, we've got 6 more boxes. Yes. Yes. Did you look it up? Okay. Nectar of instruction, what is it? Okay, just the verse. You're going to the purport. I'd like you to just look at the verse. Well, that's another one, and I'm not sure exactly where that's from, but here we have offensive, clearing, and pure chanting, having to do with the holy name. I'm not exactly sure what the source of that is. Well, you're kind of close. The nectar of instruction, the kanista is one who chants the holy name. Okay? Very good guess. This is actually important because in the previous verse, Srila Rupa Goswami talks about the 6 loving exchanges, and in this verse he tells us with whom to have these exchanges. Yeah? Okay, the person you're supposed to offer obeisances to is here. Yeah, that's where it starts. So you don't have to start here, but you start here. Here you show respect, here you offer obeisances. Sometimes people offer me obeisances and I offer them back and they say, no, no, no. And I said, what do you want me to disobey Srila Rupa Goswami? So who's the person to whom we're supposed to offer our obeisances? Those who've received what? Diksha, which means the Diksha mantras. This means second initiation. And what are they doing? Worshipping the deity. They've received the mantras and they're actually worshipping the deity. Okay, and the Uttama? One should faithfully serve those devotees who have what? We respect those who chant the holy name, we offer obeisances to those who have diksha and are worshipping the deity, and we faithfully serve those who are undeviated. and are free from what? The propensity to criticize others. So that's not just like I think something critical of you, and I'm like, but this is like the critical thoughts don't arise. Okay, we're at Nectar Devotion. This is the qualification for taking up Vaidhi Bhakti. What might help you to remember it is Vaidhi Bhakti is based on Shastra, following the rules of the Shastra. So there's 3 levels of qualification for taking up a process of bhakti that is based on following Shastra. Okay, full understanding of Shastra. So full knowledge, I'm just going to write full no, and faith in Shastra, and can, what? Convince others. Knew you guys knew this stuff. Okay, and the Majjhima has can't always convince others. So full, wait, I have 3 L's. He really has full knowledge. There you go. Full knowledge and faith in Shastra, but can't always convince others. Sometimes, of course. And the Kanistha, weak faith, weak knowledge and faith in Shastra. And these are, again, the qualifications for taking up Vaidhi Bhakti, where if it's hard to follow the Shastra if you don't know the Shastra, and it's hard to follow the Shastra if you don't have faith in the Shastra. Alrighty. So these are about different things. You know, if we're going to talk about, like, a person growing up, a person turning from a child to an adult, there's different areas of maturity, isn't there? There's social maturity, emotional maturity, physical maturity, and so forth. Can you be mature in one area without being mature in another area? Sure. You could be physically mature and emotionally immature. You could be intellectually mature and physically immature, correct? Yes, hopefully eventually you get mature in everything, but you may not. So you may find someone who's a Kanistha in one way, a Majjhima in another way, and an Uttama in another way. Whoa! Okay, so let's see what these are about. This is obvious, it's about chanting. What's this one about? What's our nectar of instruction about? Beginning, middle, or advanced in what? Engaging in the process. Is that what you said? Engaging? Is that what you said? Oh, and then the process, and how much they're dedicated to the process, how much they're following the process. They're just chanting, they're really taking initiation. Hello, birdie. You know, or they're full-on undeviated. Oh my. This is what we conditioned souls are like. We're exactly like that. We keep trying to go out of closed windows. And there's open windows and there's doors, and we're just beating our brains against the closed windows and dying in frustration life after life. Okay, what's this one about? What's the Nectar Devotion one about? Oh, almost. Almost. Come on. The other birds are encouraging you. Come on, you can make it. Okay, what's this one about? Huh? Yes, knowledge and faith in Shastra. What's this one about? Relationships. They actually are encouraging their friend. You can come out, you can come out, you can. The devotees are like that, you know, they're saying, come on, come on. We're like, I'm scared. I banged my head against the window last time. but this is an open window. I'm not sure I believe that. It looks just like the other ones. No, this one is actually, I don't know. Okay, now what's this Manah Siksa one about? Our object of worship. Do we see God as just related to the world? To being a good person in the world? Do we see God as transcendent but in a general way? Or do we see God as Krishna? So could you see God as Krishna but not yet have taken Diksha? Yeah? Could you have a lot of faith and knowledge in the scriptures and be able to convince others but be sectarian? Oh yeah, definitely. So Radhanath Das Goswami is saying that we should have excessive and unprecedented attachment to all these levels of devotees. Okay, and great attachment to our mantras, not just chanting officially. They're still trying. That poor bird is totally traumatized. Full attachment to the holy name. Again, not just chanting mechanically. Not just, okay, I finished my japa or I'm in the kirtan, but actually this is God. Here's the painting we had commissioned for this verse. This is based on Kavi Karnapur's description of Nandagram. So in our book we have these 12 beautiful paintings that were done by Gananjana of Italy. Here's a close-up of some of it. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that we should not be depending on luck. He said we should actually be following the process, not just thinking, well, if I'm lucky, I'll attain Krishna. If I'm not lucky, I won't. And then, most important in this verse, Srila Radhanath Das Goswami says, Sada Damban Hitva, always give up pride. Pride and false ego are just like this. Always give up pride. And you might say, oh man, this is the first verse in the Padati. What am I going to, I guess I'm not coming to any other classes. Just going to quit right now. So I'll tell you one thing. First of all, you're going to see that in each verse, we're going to be giving up different types of pride, more and more subtle aspects of pride. So Srila Radhanath Das Goswami can't possibly be asking us 100% to give up pride in step 1. Because we're not going to give up pride until verse 8, which is our penultimate class. When's our second to last class? Rukmini, when's our second to last class? Monday. So you don't have to give up pride for a week. I see here it's also a warning. Do you have roads in South Africa where you have to pay tolls? Okay, so usually before you enter a toll road, there's some signage. Toll road ahead, because if you don't have whatever, the gizmo on your windshield or the money, you don't want to go there and go, oops. So Srila Radhanath Das Goswami is warning us, you're going to have to give up your pride. So that's going to happen. We're going to give it up a little bit in verse 2, a little bit more in verse 3, and so forth. By the time we get to next Monday, we will be free. Okay. So I'd like to just end right now with asking each of you if you can make a little personal plan. Just pick one of these, please, just pick one. And think about how we have class again tomorrow, Manah Siksa again tomorrow. So between now and tomorrow morning, what's something you could do that would help increase your quantity or quality, or both, of attachment to any of these? Now, your plan should be something that you're actually going to do. Okay, please don't make a plan that I'm going to start chanting 150 rounds a day and only sleeping 2 hours at night. It should be something you're actually going to do, and it should be something that's not going to disrupt your life. It's not that, well, I'm going to do this plan and then my spouse will divorce me for it, Something that's going to work with your life. Because if you haven't already done it, there may be some reason that you might want to look at. What's the obstacle for this? And it can be something relatively simple. I mean, sometimes we think about, well, if I'm going to have a big effect, I have to make a big change to get a big effect. That is not necessarily true. Just like two parallel lines, if one of them moves just a millimeter, it'll end up in a different place. So sometimes extremely small changes can have very big effects. Now, one thing, when I taught this many, many years ago, that I decided to do, that I'm still doing, and that has had a big effect on me, is really meditating on Prabhupada's pranam mantras whenever I offer obeisances. Now, sometimes I forget until I'm halfway through the first one. That does happen. All of a sudden, at Vishnu Padaya, I'm like, oh yeah. But to really think about it, I try to say the mantras a little bit slowly, not but actually say it and think about what I'm saying. So how much time did that add to my day? I don't know, 5 minutes of time. How much effort? Very small effort, but it connected me much more in my quality of attachment to Srila Prabhupada. So it could be a very small thing, it doesn't have to be some huge thing. So I'd like you to please write it down. Now, if you feel comfortable, only if you feel comfortable, you can share your plan with your neighbor. You don't need to. If it's very personal, you don't need to. But if you're able to share your plan with your neighbor, telling someone else your plan is much more likely to result in it actually happening. So if there's someone that you're willing to tell your plan to, please go ahead and do that. So I'm going to give you 1 minute to please write down your plan and share it if you feel comfortable. Okay, so tomorrow morning we're going to be doing verses 2 and 3. If you have Manah Siksa, you might want to read over verses 2 and 3 in preparation. And again, what we're going to be doing, so our second class is going to be on verses 2 and 3, our third class on 4 and 5, our next class on 6 and 7. Then we're going to do a class on 3 verses, 8, 9, 10. And then we're going to do a class on 11 and 12. So it's pretty much two verses a class, except this one we just did verse 1, and our penultimate class will do 8, 9, 10. So thank you very much. Srila Radhanath Das Goswami ki jai, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Any mistakes here are my own. Anything good in this class has come from Srila Prabhupada, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and Srila Radhanath Das Goswami, and certainly not from me. Hare Krishna.